Do you want more success, more growth, more results? Then it's time for the Boundless Success Accelerator from the Modern Observer Group. This isn't your average coaching program. It's where top performers come to dominate. Weekly group sessions, on-demand coaching, a community that's got your back, and a power-packed library of tools to supercharge your business and career. No more excuses, no more waiting. Get in, level up, and start building the life you've been dreaming about. Visit us at modernobserver.com/boundlesssuccess to join today. Let's get you to the next level.
Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And very interesting, fascinating. Usually UN addresses, Dr. Lopkin, we both would agree, especially literally with Uncle Joe was the big yawn, not just figuratively, but literally. This was kind of a shot heard around the world. We'll start with what happened before. We have Macron calling up Trump, basically complaining everything's jammed because of the Trump motorcade. And Dr. Lopkin, what was Trump's response?
Actually, I did not hear his specific response. I can only imagine.
He said basically, oh, that's too bad. Why don't you walk to the UN? Yeah. Which he actually ended up doing, which I think is interesting because shows many things. Well, it shows basically the relative power of old Europe, which is severely on the decline. But basically, I think it's Trump and America kind of reasserting itself. It's like we're no one's lapdog. That's just kind of an aside, Dr. Lopkin. But the main event is Trump entering the UN, escalator not working, teleprompter, but basically ripped into the UN and into globalists. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, his address was interesting to say the least, because he actually questioned the purpose of the UN and got on them for being absolutely useless in terms of taking action about all the things they talk about. And let's face it, over the last several years, we have seen a deterioration of the UN. I mean, Iran is on the Human Rights Council. How do you even justify this?
If it was an artificial organization created for some 1970s B movie, you'd walk out and say, come on, this is a joke. This can't happen, right? But you are correct. They're fixated on woke and liberal and nonsensical ideologies, but they're not even good at executing that, okay? Global warming, they're fixated. I think they were given a budget to spruce up the place, and it's still nothing. I really liked Donald Trump, basically, what is the purpose here? Because, yes, he took credit because I stopped 8 wars and whatever. Okay, you might dispute that. But not even getting a call, like, Rwanda, other places, the Congo, not even, like, they're so fixated on bullshit that they've completely taken their eyes off the ball. Were they always somewhat quasi-useless? Yes. But you can refer back to the 60s and the 67 war that they actually intervened and did some good. But it's been a drip into uselessness. Am I right with that?
Yeah, I don't really think that the UN has had a purpose since probably the mid-1980s with the fall of the Soviet Union. And I mean, the Soviet Union was always a problem with Russia being on the permanent, committee, because they can veto anything that goes against their interests. And then the UN, also back in the 70s and 80s, was stupid enough to do the same thing with China. So it's not really a surprise that this organization has become irrelevant because they handed power to the people they were supposed to be monitoring.
But they also, it's not only that they're irrelevant, they're destructive. I mean, funding, unbridled, unchecked immigration. It's almost the third world's vehicle for undermining Western democracies. I don't think that's too much of a stretch.
No, it
I mean,
really
they can't wait. Whoa,
isn't.
whoa. They cannot wait. I'm sorry, but they cannot wait. Israel sneezes and the Congo executes, 30,000 people. What are they going to talk about? That's a rhetorical question, by
Yeah.
the way. Go ahead.
No, but you're absolutely right. I mean, we have absolute proof that the UN was infiltrated by Hamas or vice versa, and there were financial ties to terrorists. And yet, the United States is still responsible for the majority of the UN funding. And by the way, you mentioned Macron complaining about the traffic. Guess what? I used to live in New York City. New Yorkers complained about the traffic every time these idiots came to town.
Yes. I did like the Macron thing because I think it's reflective of what Trump went after the globalist, elitist Europeans. You talk about declining powers. There is a new Europe, and I'm not a big fan of Rumsfeld, but he was correct. Poland, Hungary, others. They're taking Western Europe on the same trajectory is finished in a very short period of time.
Yes, but Eastern Europe is actually in grave danger. We've had Russian drones invading Polish space. Now we've seen them invading Danish space. They invaded Norwegian space. The Russians are not going to be settling for Ukraine. They've already shown Russian planes violated NATO security zones. The
You are
drones.
you are 100% correct. My only assertion, but I think it's a huge assertion, that yes, that is you're being undermined from outside sources and powers. The destruction of Western Europe came from within.
No, but it's
A
not
self-induced
from with.
suicide.
Right, but it's not from without, because the Russians would not be able to do this if Western Europe stopped buying their oil. Western Europe has been fueling the war against Ukraine because they keep buying energy from Russia, despite the fact that Trump has said we can supply all your energy needs. There is no reason for you to be buying energy from Russia, and yet they keep doing it.
Well, they're going to have to choose. I mean, eventually, I'll make a wild ass opinion because it is my opinion. I'm not a big fan of NATO. I'm sorry. It's 80 years after World War II. Stand on your own 2 feet. Basically, I think we enable these elitist, globalist, declining, useless, what else should I say, Western European countries, post-colonial powers, and powers is using the term very loosely. Yes, we're enabling them, and I think it takes a strong message. Trump is the one to deliver it. Is listen, you better cut the shit of buying oil, or you're on your own. It's essentially what they do all the time. They talk a mean game plan. They're mealy mouths and they're weak on everything.
Well,
except hating Israel.
Well, Trump already delivered that message. He has said he has no problem defending NATO and defending Ukraine as long as Western Europe stops buying Russian oil. And crickets, there has been no response from Europe. So, I mean, what's going to happen? They're actually funding their own demise.
Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me. And that might surprise you. Western Europe in particular has been led. Okay, we haven't exactly been led by, by Mensa candidates. Okay, but they have had the most woke, bullshit, liberal leadership since World War II. You take England, and I do know history. Okay, yes, were they ever going to be a superpower again? No, but they went from first class to basically stowage in a very short period of time. They cease to be even, and then you talk about Macron and walking. Trump said it. They expressed, declaring their view of having a palace. And Trump basically said, he's kind of correct. He's like, who gives a shit what they think? They're not a power anymore. They couldn't invade Rhode Island.
No,
okay, it's over.
Trump telling Macron that he can walk after Macron pulled this bullshit recognizing a Palestinian state and actually leading other countries to recognize Palestine is very reminiscent of when Reagan sent planes to Libya, and of course they accidentally hit the French embassy after France refused to let our pilots fly over French airspace. And Reagan's response was, well, if they'd gotten a little more sleep and didn't have to go around France, maybe this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I love that. And by the way, it was a great one. We always love, both of us love Johnny Carson. He had a great opening monologue, unlike Jimmy Kimmel and the others, who would probably take the Libyan side. But anyway, that's another issue. He says, yes, and the French got pissed at us for violating their airspace. They certainly didn't mind it in World War II. Bada bing. But the Macron thing and declaring Palestine, it's the last vestiges. It's like the rock star. I'll digress a little bit. I saw this really funny video on YouTube about David Lee Roth, once the heartthrob of the 80s. And now he's doing a reunion. He's 70 something years old with leather pants and he's barking. He can't even sing. That's the same. That's not a bad analogy to Western Europe. They still think they're Van Halen a la 1985. But guess what? That's 35 years ago. Sorry.
Yeah, I think Jimmy Carr put it best. And for those of you not familiar with Jimmy Carr, he's a British comedian. And he takes questions during his act from the audience. And there was an American in the audience, and he asked the question, who do you think is more woke? Us or, oh no, excuse me, it wasn't an American in the audience, but he asked, who do you think is more woke? The US or Britain? And Jimmy Carr said, oh, definitely Britain. Because I don't know if you've seen this, but there used to be a show called The Apprentice. Well, the star of that has a brand new show. It's called The News. And you never know what he's going to do.
I like that. Nice. And true, correct?
Yes, very accurate.
Yes. Well, very interesting kind of in our own domestic front. We'll start very quickly, and I emphasize very quickly. Uncle Joe, once the leader of the free world, guess what? Monetarily, financially, he's going down the shitter. Does that shock you that the boy genius is turf up in terms of financially?
No, it doesn't.
Let me explain one thing. Is that if you were a president with any kind of legacy, I'm thinking like you mowed the grass in the White House lawn, you're definitely going to be cashing in on easily 10, 15 mil. He's probably going to be doing, he's not going to get any gigs, but if he does, it's like Fuller Brush meeting in Hartford, Connecticut. There you go.
Well, I mean, it's not a surprise that he's having financial troubles. This was actually announced while he was still in office that he was suffering financial troubles because all of a sudden everybody was paying attention to where his money came from. But even more than the corruption drying up, because now Biden's got no power whatsoever, you also have to remember that most of the money that presidents make after they leave office are from consulting, public speaking, and books. And because of his dementia, he's not capable of doing any of those.
Well, Dr. Lockman, hold on. You have a great point. Let's take one individually, very quick, each one. Consulting. Please, you are the marketing consulting guru. Consult what? No,
Well,
tell me. Please help me. You're a smart guy.
that's just
Zero.
it. He was, again, taking a quote from Obama's administration. Joe has been wrong on foreign policy, on every foreign policy decision for over 50 years. Usually, that's what presidents consult on, helping corporations make connections overseas, telling them how to deal with international markets. Biden can't do that. He had no expertise in that when he was in office, never mind now that his mind is gone. So that's one of the big things that also a lot of former politicians, when they leave office, become lobbyists. Well, nobody is going to be swayed by Joe Biden right now.
The only thing I would say, I would interject, I would pay maybe if drinks were included. If drinks were included, I'd pay 100 drinks and dinner. I'd pay $100 to see a tag team of Uncle Joe and Hunter, because I don't smoke pot anymore, but I probably might make an exception. I might have a heart attack at my age because I'd be laughing so hard. Come on, you'd see that. Wouldn't it be good? That would be awesome.
I don't know. I think I'd wait for the YouTube clips, quite frankly. I don't see my money going to support the Bidens.
There you go. Yeah, you're probably right on that. But it would be must-see YouTube TV.
Yes.
It would be excellent. Very good. And then moving on to a more, no, you can't really say serious note, Kamala's book tour, throwing everyone under the bus. I'm going to throw it out to you. What's going on here? Please help me.
Kamala is in complete denial about the fact that she lost the presidential election, not because it was a short amount of time, not because Joe Biden took too long to come out. It was because she was completely incompetent.
Thank you.
When The View lobs you a softball and you can't handle it, and then they ask you a clarifying question to give you a second attempt at it, and you still blow it. When Oprah,
I think it's funny. It's like, yes, go ahead. Sorry.
When Oprah looks at you going, "Oh my God, you're stupider than anybody imagined."
That was Dr. Lopkin. That was, remember, like everyone knows a picture's worth 1,000.
Yes.
The look on Oprah's face, like shell shocked on how dumb this moron is. And I love the part, please comment on this. She has a shtick, and then Rachel Maddow, she's just a sounding board. First of all, she insulted, the whole Buttigieg about, him being gay. Of course, as a lesbian, I don't think she took too kindly to that. But the funniest one was she keeps on repeating, it was one of the closest elections. On what planet? You lost every swing state. You lost a popular vote. Close.
Yeah,
really?
No, this was not close. This, it just goes to show how far out of touch she has always been. And again, remember, she didn't run any primary. Her positions in California were handed to her. She never had to work for any of the positions she got.
Well, you can make an assertion she worked,
including vice president. And it was
pretty hard with Willie Brown.
Yeah, it was very clear while she was vice president, Biden actually gave her some amazing opportunities to shine, but she didn't want to do the work. And that's not me saying it. That's her former staffers saying it.
to put kind of a cork on this, and I don't say this as lightly, we dodged a bullet. She has no right being a claims processor at the Aetna Life Insurance Company. She is a complete moron, and that is my honest opinion, devoid of any original thought. If she was ever, just by chance, elected president, you could kiss your ass goodbye. That's how dumb she is.
Yeah, well, I mean, she showed how dumb she was on The View, not the original screw up. This is her most recent screw up when she's promoting the book, and they asked her point blank, "Is there anything Donald Trump has done that's good?" And she said point blank, she said, "I can't think of anything." Really? You were the border czar, and you couldn't do anything to solve the border crisis, and he did it in 6 weeks.
You know something, Dr. Lopkin? I don't care what the question would be. I can't think of anything. You could just rubber stamp that on any question. Okay? Like,
Yeah,
how
there's
can we improve on the town square that, all the grass died? I can't think of
I can
anything.
think, yeah, there's a
There you go.
meme. Yeah, there's a meme, and the meme is actually about AOC, but it applies equally to Harris. The meme is it's a picture of AOC, and it says, "Can I ask a stupid question?" And under it is a picture of Trump, and it says, "Better than anyone I know."
I love that. Very nice. So, something that we've talked about, because we've always been ahead of the curve, even on terrestrial radio, where we were unceremoniously vacated, and because, liberals like free speech. But anyway, um, so we talked about the changing workforce educational system. I contend that college, the whole college industry, which it is headed for a huge awakening. And why do I say that? It's fascinating what's going on now. So AI is, well, Salesforce.com laid off 40% of their customers. So it's starting, but it hasn't taken full hold. So before AI, I'll say pre-AI, I'll just throw it into that category. There is a white collar recession. Positions have fallen over 12% for graduates, okay? 55% of Gen Zs regret selecting white collar professions and wish they went in to blue collar vocations. And speaking of that, I saw you talk about YouTube videos. I don't know if I was 18 years old, what the hell am I doing in college unless I'm going to be a brain surgeon? You can go to friggin' HVAC. Hello. Anyway, and then just giving you the facts before you give your insights into this. High percentage, like over 42% of those who were laid off, white collar workers, are still looking for work 6 months after the incident. And then you could talk about shitty MBAs from Carl University and all that crap that's never been valuable. But Harvard was the gold standard. Come hell or high water. I don't care if it's a great recession. You're getting a job with a Harvard MBA. Not so much anymore. They're still going wanting. How do you like that? And the last fact before you give your insight, please, is that employment, or I should say, yes, positions have fallen by almost 700,000. Your thoughts? And how does a university continue to promote MBAs? Well, that's just ridiculous. But just business education and all those other things. I mean, you're basically subjecting young people to a life of student debt with no way to pay it off.
Yeah,
it's become the art history degree of the modern age.
Yeah, the problem with the white collar job market right now is actually multifaceted. There are a lot of factors that are going into it, not the least of which was the fact that the jobs numbers, as we were talked about last week, turned out to be inflated over the last several years. So that's, a big problem. But let's talk about the tech sector first of all. During the pandemic, when everybody went virtual and everybody was working remotely, technology was key. Everything hinged on technology. So the tech sector severely overhired because they were working under the assumption that, oh, we're never going back to the way it was. People aren't going to return to the office. They love working remotely. Well, as it turns out, employers don't love when their workforce works remotely. And most companies now, you're back in the office at least part time. So that technology, they turned out the tech companies had way too many people. So they had to start laying off, and they're not going to be rehiring anytime soon because first they're going to have to reach a level of normalization where they've got the right number, and then they first have to start expanding again before they ever start hiring. So, and that process is going to be slowed down as AI rolls out more. You know, and I'm guilty of this myself with my kids. I made them learn to code because coding was very well considered to be the blue collar work of the 21st century. That was going to be it. And now AI has sort of wiped that out. So you've got that going on with the tech sector. Then you've got the credibility of college graduates. Well, how many firms did we talk about over the past 2 years have started saying, well, you know what, we're not hiring from Harvard, we're not hiring from Columbia, we're not hiring from any of these woke universities that refuse to defend Jews because now we know what they're actually teaching and we don't want those people in our workforce culture.
May
So
I interject because I agree with you
go ahead.
100%. A real world situation, I think it'd be a fascinating. No, yeah, I was going to say MD. Doctoral thesis. There you go. If you're going to be a professor. Okay, I'll make a long story real short. I worked for a company, and then they started transitioning, and I don't mean to, sexually, but they became, MBAs and, let's do the spreadsheets and blah, 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 all this kind of stuff, right? And that company, which is called Stanley Black and Decker, was at $250 a share. Now it's down to it's around 60. And because everything was quantified and MBAized, right? Then there's another company called Milwaukee that when 20 years ago was this also ran. It got taken over, or was run now by a guy named Joe Galli, who's kind of blue collar. He's a college educated, but he's like by the gut, old school. Guess what? They're kicking Stanley's ass. I mean, not just kicking, like just destroying them. And I think it's just indicative of the unintended consequences of an MBA. You had something like you'd have to try to screw up Stanley Black and Decker, and guess what? MBAs accomplished it. So I kind of disagree because that's results.
Oh, it's results, all right. Nothing you'd want to have happen to your company, though.
No.
If you take a look at the great American companies, the vast majority of them were started by college dropouts. By some of them, some of the founders did have undergraduate degrees. But now take a look at what MBAs have brought us. The financial crisis of 2008 was all from MBAs. We've had long-standing companies fall apart because of their reliance on MBAs. And why is this such a big problem? Because when you go to get your MBA, You're not being taught by business people. You're taught by
Yes,
people
correct.
who studied business. They've never actually
Correct.
done it.
100%. I do teach as an adjunct college, and I'm sorry to say, I tell my students, business is the only thing. If you've never done it, then it's almost irrelevant. And I said, for instance, a amoeba is the same outside the classroom or inside. In other words, if you're teaching biology, biology is biology. But if you've never been in a real business situation, and I've experienced that with theoretical idiots from consulting terms talking about nonsense. I literally looked them in the eye and said, well, I don't want to interfere in you doing the spreadsheet and decision tree, but I can save you a lot of time. If you want to, they'll throw us out. It's like, yeah, that's what's going to
Yes.
happen. Okay. So, but it's really also interesting, and I'd love your insight into this. Like, I always think if you want to make it simplistic, an MBA can take like changing the color of a styrofoam cup for Halloween into launching the space shuttle. Let's do the
Yes.
market review. Oh my God. In 5 Halloweens later, it might come out. Might. I doubt it,
Right.
but might.
And historically, the MBAs, oh, you have to do the market research, you have to run the
Oh yeah.
spreadsheets. Guess what?
Oh yeah.
There was no market research on the Ford Model T. There was no
There you
market
go.
research on the iPhone. Why? Because both Steve Jobs and Henry Ford talked about this. Henry Ford said point blank, if I asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse because they weren't thinking about an automobile. Steve
And you know something?
Jobs,
Wait, Dr. Lopkin, you have no. I know where you're going, and I'm not interrupting you, but it is an awesome point. The point. It's because when you MBAize things, everything is going to be quantified, and it's exactly what you said about Henry Ford. Because most of the big ideas that I've seen, the success, were the gut. Not that you could just run half cocked and do stuff. But hey, what if we did this? By the time you MBAize it, it gets that it never happens, and it's so watered down. It's like, who gives a shit?
right. If Steve Jobs had said, if I asked my customers what they wanted on the phone, nobody would have ever said a touch screen because they hadn't seen it yet. Innovation does not come from MBAs. And for our listeners, if you want the ultimate statement on what an MBA means to business, go to YouTube and search for Back to School Rodney Dangerfield business class scene. The scene is
Perfect.
absolutely hysterical. For those of you not familiar with the movie, Rodney Dangerfield plays a very successful businessman who decides to go back to college. He never graduated college, but he wants to spend time with his now college age son. So he enrolls in the college with him. And the scene I'm referring to is his first day in business class, where he clashes with the business professor, showing how little the business professor actually knows about the real world of business.
Yes, great movie and totally accurate. But I really think it's a huge title shift. I think that you are the doctor, and we're right. God, time flies. Maybe God, it could be 6 years ago when you were talking about the buffet of expertise. I think that is going to be the thing. Taking a course here, getting a certification there. If you're not great at writing, take a class in English at UConn. But develop the skills and go out there. It's like building a car. You're going to build a race car. Well, you put on slick tires. It's going to be off road. It's going to be 4-wheel drive. And I think then you tailor make your skills to what you want to do and cut all the shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is not a new concept. This is exactly what Steve Jobs did. He did not get a college degree. He took classes that interested him and built up his skills. He often talked about the fact that the design of the Mac interface, which was the first really viable graphic user interface, despite the fact that Windows beat it to market by, moments. But he said that was all inspired by him learning typography and design in these design classes. Now, if he had gone for an MBA, he would never have taken design classes. If he had gone for a degree in computers, he would not have taken design classes. But how much would the world of computers have been different if Steve Jobs had just taken computer classes, never been interested in design, and never introduced that into the Macintosh?
And that is the quintessential example of the buffet of skills. I have something in closing to run by you, Dr. Lopkin. How funny would a video be? A party, like a high class party, I'm not at a keg party, of 1980, and you're schmoozing around. And what would be some of the questions? Where'd you go to school? Oh. And then in this video, you'd have the person successful. And where'd you go to school? Oh, I didn't. I just went right to work and got some skills. I'd be like, Doing the same thing now, I think you might get 100%, not 100. Might get a completely different reaction. Like, where'd you go to school? Well, I went to Harvard and took art history, and people would probably say, "Wow, really? You did that? Wow." And what do you do? Oh, I went to HVAC. I now run my own company. Do you think it's changed at all is my question.
Oh, it has certainly changed. And, going back to our first segment about the fall of Western Europe, the education system here in the United States is a legacy of our European roots. To
The
this date,
Industrial Revolution.
it has never been more important than in Europe where you went to school. That's a conversation starter. Oh, and where did you go to school? And for a long time, it was here because that was the legacy. But it's not the future of education, and it's
a good way.
It's certainly not the future of the job market.
Agreed 100%. I think it was a weeding out social factor. Like, where'd you go to school? I went to, I don't know, Middlesex Community. Oh, really? I went to Harvard. Oh, wow. I think it's completely changed. I think it's fascinating. And I think it has huge, obvious repercussions, not only for the job market, but for colleges. What do you think of this in closing? And this will be our closing. I think a smart college would have a morph college atmosphere, which is STEM, maybe even, skills like HVAC. So you get some liberal arts, maybe a little bit of, a polishing, we'll call it that, but you really get out with a HVAC certification. I like that, by the way.
That's actually already happening. The first functioning college with a model similar to that is University of Austin, which was founded only a few years ago by a group of business people that wanted to reinvent education so that the workforce coming out was actually skilled for today's job market and today's industry. And it is a completely different learning model than, certainly the Ivy League. And so far, you're seeing very good results from this. So I'm hoping to see other colleges and universities learn the lesson of University of Austin and actually reinvent themselves.
I think they're going to have to survive. But anyway, we not only survive, we thrive here on Carnivore Radio, and our listeners can thrive with us, can't they?
Yes, we want to hear what you are concerned about. What issues interest you? What do you want to dig into? Let us know by going to xvadio.com/connect. Send us a message. You can also message us from the Carnivore Radio Facebook page. We'd love to hear what you're thinking. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites at xvadio.com, the Carnivore Radio website, Apple Podcasts app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. Great show. See you next week.
We'll see you then.